I'll come back to you on this, but let me get back to Adib Saani. Adib, if you can hear me now, of course, looking at what ensued in Parliament today and the Bawku conflict taking center stage with people like the defense minister getting involved and speaking to these issues from a security standpoint, bringing this to the limelight. Is it a good sign, in your opinion, that we are really beginning to take this seriously?
Well, in the past, we've always shied away from speaking about Bawku because at the point, a lot of stakeholders felt it was just out of control and there's nothing much we could do. The fact that finally we are talking about it is a good sign, but I'm hoping that we are able to address the real fundamental issues. And I was quite surprised when the Honorable Defense Minister said this is no longer about chieftaincy. Indeed, it is about chieftaincy, owing to the fact that the conflict is becoming complex and by the day. We have some criminals taking advantage of the lawless nature of the place. The possibility, and this is something I've said in the past, long ago, the possibility of terrorists taking advantage of the situation to come and join one side over the other so they get legitimacy and a safe haven is very high. In the past, there's been a number of leaks from the national security and even from the police that pointed to some individuals coming from Burkina Faso to fight in that area and some sightings as well. So I must say it is quite distressing, but before we are able to resolve this, we need to understand what really the issue is. The issue is about chieftaincy. Okay, the Mamprisis say they are the legitimate, the Kusasis say they are the legitimate, and the minister spoke about Mamprisis and Kusasis living in Kusiga, Zibla, Karu, Timpani, and other places not fighting. But I would put it to the minister that he needs to check. There are a lot of these fighters who are not from Bawku. They are from these, towns and villages, brought in to fight, in Bawku. So even though they might not be engaged in open belligerence on their home turf, they are fighting elsewhere. So we need to recognize the fact that really the chieftaincy is still a sticking point, and it's high time we address it. But I agree with the minister when he spoke about the place being awash with high-powered rifles. It is true, because there are some criminal elements taking advantage to bring in these weapons. They are engaged in human trafficking, they are engaged in drug trafficking and all manner of crimes. I spoke with some military personnel on the ground who even contend that sometimes they hear the sound of certain guns and they wonder what type of guns they are. So that should tell you a lot about the situation in the town. And until we deal with the fundamentals, we will not be able to solve this. And I've realized that for years on end, our focus has been on the superficial solutions, deployment of military and police personnel. The number of military personnel you have on the ground doesn't really matter, to be honest with you. Okay, because if they stop fighting, it's just an interim measure. If they stop fighting today, tomorrow they're going to fight. Okay, so why don't you deal with those deep-seated socioeconomic and political deficits that is prevalent in that society that is driving a lot of young people into this cycle of violence?
Now, also, this conflict in Bawku is raising larger concerns which could have serious security implications for the country itself. You heard the defense minister's claims that some people tried to demolish a bridge linking a major military supply route. And do you think that we could have the issue of jihadists taking advantage of this conflict to really foment trouble for the country, especially considering the fact that there are a lot of refugees, trooping in from Burkina Faso into the Bawku area?
Lantam, I hope they haven't taken advantage already. That is the scary bit of it. A lot of these refugees come in an unregulated, uncoordinated, unplanned manner. And our authorities are always not on hand to receive them. Sometimes before the refugee board or NADMO or any of those agencies get there, they have moved towards the south, particularly Kumasi. Some also stay with relatives in that area. The possibility of some jihadists, mingling with the people and coming in is very high. Already, the Burkinabe authorities have handed over weapons to civilians in the name of volunteerism to counter the threat. So sometimes these militants go attack villages and towns looking for these volunteers. And, it is possible that some of these volunteers would, mix up with the refugees and come into the country. So my fear is maybe we could have the jihadists one day wanting to come after these volunteers on Ghana's soil. That would be disturbing. So this issue really is worth tackling because terrorists are so opportunistic. Sometimes when the situations work to their advantage, they are able to hop on that and wreak havoc. Okay, so I must say there's a real threat, but it's not all I can see on TV or on radio, So I'm just, trying to manage information. But one thing is for sure, there is a major threat.
We'll leave it here. Thank you very much, Adib Saani, for speaking to us on the Insight on News Tonight this evening. Let me get back to you a while in the studio. Adib Saani there talked about the root cause of this issue in Bawku. People understand on the surface that it's an issue between, Kusasis and Mampresis in the area. Adib Saani talks about the fact that it boils down to chieftaincy. What really is the issue?
Yes, so like he said, the issue is basically about chieftaincy, about who is the legitimate chief of Bawku. And that has been the bone of contention. And we need to put this discussion in context and to say that Bawku is just one of 500 other cases of chieftaincy disputes that are unresolved in Ghana. Mm-hmm. And so the issue of Bawku just happens to be that the people have taken entrenched positions and they've been using arms and ammunition over time, and they have been emboldened. They have been emboldened because of several factors. One, the culture of impunity.